Rosie, an Aussie meat pie is one of those things you have to have, whether you're at the footy or the cricket. You know when you get a lukewarm pie and you put a bit of sauce on the top of it?
You draw your little name in it.
Exactly. Now, pastry is one of those things that people find quite difficult to do. So what I'm going to do is make a meat pie using Kataifi pastry.
Beautiful, yeah.
Really easy, and I'll show you a couple of tips to making that. But to start with, we're going to get the filling of it, and I'm going to put some veggies in the filling, which I know you're going to love.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to get you to do is to chop up those mushrooms, cut them in half, some garlic there, chop that up nice and fine, and I've got some celery, carrot and onion, and I'm just going to slice it up. Now, if you want to, you can slice it nice and small, little dices or chops or whatever sort of size you want, but I'm going to leave it quite chunky, sort of the same size as the meat that I'm cooking.
Well, that's what you want. You want everything really to be the same size, don't you?
Exactly, and cooks together beautifully. Now, the onion I'm just going to chop up nice and thick like this, and we get all our ingredients ready at the start so that we don't have to muck around with it. What do you think? Now, what I've got is some butter here, and I'm going to cut a nice big slab of butter, probably about half a block of butter, and put it straight into the pan. That should start sizzling straight away. So what I'm going to do, Rosie, is sweat off my veggies with the mushroom and the garlic and some of the herbs over there. I've got some rosemary and thyme. We're going to throw them in there as well, and we'll sweat them around so they soften up nicely. I'm just going to take it from you like that. We don't even need to chop it up, do we? There we go. Nice and rough.
It's quite simple, isn't it?
It is quite simple. It is. Now, I've got the meat here, and I've got some great Australian grass-fed beef. And I'll just tear the plastic off there and take it out. This is beautiful beef. And the thing about using a meat pie is you have to know what sort of cut you're using. This is rump, so I know it's going to cook fairly quickly. In about half an hour or so, it should be nice and tender. Now, what I'm going to do, Rosie, is grab some salt. And if you grab some pepper over there, I'm going to put some salt and pepper and season it up. But I'm also going to use some flour on the meat because that's what I'm going to use to brown it off, and it will also thicken up the actual pie mix.
So you want that? It's all about that thick sauce dripping down the base at the cricket. I've seen them at the cricket.
Now, I'll just mix the flour into the meat like that. We've got the seasoning in there as well, and I just make sure each one of those pieces of rump is coated nicely in the flour. Now, my pan's nice and hot here. I'm going to add some extra virgin olive oil, a nice big splush of extra virgin olive oil just to get everything going in the pan. What I'll do, Rosie, is pop the meat into the pan here, and you can see it's starting to sizzle away. Now, the flour that's left over in the bowl, we're going to pop that in with the butter later on to help thicken it all up. Now, if you get cracking on the herbs there, some rosemary and the thyme, just chop me up a little bit of it because we're going to add that to the pie mix, but we're also going to add it to the actual pastry at the top. But that's my little trick and my little tip that we're going to make it even nicer. In goes the meat here like this into the pan. You can see it's sizzling up nicely. The trick with this also is to not get it too hot. You actually want to warm it up nicely so it starts to brown off nice and gently. If we put it in the pan too hot, it actually goes everywhere. And the other thing is, give your hands a little bit of a dust.
It was always going to be a messy job, wasn't it, really?
It was. Now, what I'm going to do, Rosie, is just give that a bit of a toss around like that, and you can see it's going to start to brown up nicely. And all I need to do is stir this around. Now, in a couple of minutes' time, my beef will be browned up nicely. My veggies will be softened up. We'll throw the herbs into it, add some liquid, and then we'll thicken it up really nicely. Now, Rosie, you can see the beef is browning up nicely. And it's got that little bit of a crust on it that the flour gives it. And you can see the veggies have softened up nicely, which is the perfect timing for me to add a little bit of flour. I add about the same quantity of flour to the butter. And you get a roux, Rosie, and that's the thickening part of the sauce. Stir that around a little bit to make sure everything comes together beautifully. And then we need to add a little bit of red wine. Red wine makes the pie delicious, so a little splash of red wine.
And that's an Australian Shiraz that we've got there, is it?
Of course it is, from the Coonawarra, mate. There we go.
Oh, lovely.
In it goes. And you can see that's going to brown up nicely. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce for some colour as well. And you can see it's thickening up beautifully already. Now,
so a bit of bone broth as well, a little bit more liquid, which is great because all that time that it sits there stewing over, it's getting all those lovely minerals from those bones, which is exactly what we want. So a bit of apple cider vinegar in there as well, just to help make sure everything's absorbed nice. Oh,
lovely. And it also gives it a great flavour. Now, I'll stir that around there like that. That's going to thicken up fairly quickly. I'm also going to add the bone broth to the pan here, and that's going to help pick up all the juices and all the bits and pieces that are left over from the beef. I'll just stir that around there like that, and I'll pick up all the bits and pieces and then pop it into this pot here. Now, what's going to happen, Rosie, this is all going to come together and thicken up. And in the meantime, what we're going to do, Rosie, is we're going to get the pastry ready. I've got the Kataifi pastry over there. We're going to cut it up, and I'm going to add some flavour to it, and you'll see how this all works. Now, Rosie, you can see the mixture here is reduced down and thickened up quite some, and the rump is cooked. It's nice and tender as well. Now, to make the filling, I'm going to use some Kataifi, which can be used for sweet and savoury. And I've got some little scissors, and you want to be careful with your fingers.
I love it. It's so versatile stuff. It's almost a little bit like vermicelli noodles, isn't it? Like
it is.
Looks a little like that.
And what I'm going to do, Rosie, is give it a bit of a snip like this with the scissors. Give it a haircut, and this shortens down the little fibres, and it makes it nice and
You're in the
nice
wrong
and
career
small.
there, Richo, aren't you?
It is. I'd be a great hairdresser, wouldn't I?
You would.
Now, if I can get you to pull it apart with your fingers, the trick is to break it apart so the little lumps and clumps come apart. That's what makes it nice and fluffy and airy. There we go. Cut a few more pieces like that. Now, I've got some thyme and some rosemary there.
Yep.
I want you to just massage it through the whole thing.
Infuse it in a little bit. Lovely.
Get it all the way through there. And I'm going to add some salt in there as well.
Great.
Because we want the pastry to taste nice and delicious. Get right in there, Rosie. Mix it all up. Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to grab a little bit of melted butter and pour it over the top. About 100 grams of butter that's melted. There we go. Straight on the top there. Now, I want you to scrunch it up with your fingers, Rosie. Get in there. Have a look at that pie mixture, Rosie. It's looking good, isn't it? Nice and thick.
Really good, yeah.
I'll turn that off.
Chunky. You went for the chunky type, didn't you?
Chunky pie. No minced meat pies for me. I like my meat to be diced. Now, I'll just grab the pot here and pour it straight into my pie dish. You can see I've got a beautiful pie dish, round pie dish that goes all the way to the end, and it's a really thick sauce. That's what makes it nice. Now, this is the fun bit. I'm going to bring this in here. Rosie, grab the Kataifi, and we just spread it over the top here like this, all the way around.
How
it's like,
great.
It looks great. It's like putting a little wig on, isn't it?
Oh, I love it.
Now, this Kataifi is a favourite of one of my mates, Christos. His grandmother makes a dish very much like this, and this is where I got the idea. Why not just grab the whole lot of it like this? Now, you could use half a packet if you want, but for me, I love the Kataifi. I love the way it sits on top of it, and it makes it nice and crispy. Now, this is going to go into an oven. I've preheated the oven to 190 degrees Celsius. It takes about 25 minutes to 35 minutes till it's nice and crisp, depending on how thick you have the Kataifi. In the oven it goes, and I reckon by the time we've got this out of the oven, I'll have some dead horse or some tomato sauce ready. In we go. Rosie, look at that. Looks fantastic, doesn't it?
It's really impressive, yeah, really impressive.
And you can smell the rosemary in the pastry. It really comes through.
You won't get it in a brown paper bag to hold, will you? But you're not supposed to with this kind anyway, are you?
No, and the idea is it's a quick, simple way of putting it together, and you've still got that crunch, which is what I like about the pastry. You can see that filling is gorgeous, fantastic. And I'll just take that off there.
Oh, this is a lot of people's favourites, so I'm glad that you did this.
Oh, now we need some dead horse, a little
Well, I want to have a little try of this pastry that infused by those lovely herbs.
That's the crunch I'm looking for with a pastry. I think that's probably the most important part. When you are eating a pie, it is about the pastry, and using a different type of pastry like this that makes it really interesting. Now, I'm going to have a taste of this, and you can tell me what you think about that pastry.
The Kataifi is beautiful. That really is crunchy, and if you like a crunchy topping, then swapping to that one is just fantastic, gorgeous. How's the middle?
Now, Rosie, if you think the Kataifi pastry is great, well, that filling is fantastic. That meat is cooked to perfection, a beautiful, simple sauce, veggies in there to round it up. I'm glad you can't eat meat, because this pie is all for me.